right, so nobody's on the live stream yet. Let's wait until people start showing up. But for anybody who's watching the re-record, obviously, you can see the things we're going to be talking about here in the corner.
For a future YouTube broadcast.
Yeah, future YouTube broadcast, because we're not really sure how this is going to work yet. I hope this thing starts showing us who's on, because, okay, Veronica's on, Karina's on. Hey, Karina, what's going on? Okay, so I guess, 5 people already. Okay, so I guess we'll just get started. So, welcome to the first edition of our live stream, Living or Shown Live. This is kind of a thing that we've been, like, playing around with for a while, like, the idea of it. And we figured, why the hell not this particular Sunday, just because the last month there's been so much just wacky news in the world of The Walking Dead.
And also, there's no more new episodes until when? Like late August?
August. Yeah, we didn't want to go that long without like talking to any of you guys, interacting with anybody. So it's just an excuse to get on and talk about everything. So here's going to be the topics of conversation. Fear the Walking Dead. We'll talk about Lenny James a little bit.
Let's just go right into it.
Okay. We can talk about the Fear the Walking Dead finale first, just because that was the most recent thing that happened.
I'll keep an eye on the time.
I'm sure everybody probably is thinking mostly about the fact that Madison is dead. I guess I'm probably in the minority, and then I don't really mind that Madison's gone.
Well, it's what it is. I think ultimately is such a huge change to kill not one but the 2 main leads of a show, and basically restart over from scratch. So what you have here, I think, is the first time where a show rebooted itself as it was still airing. And that's basically what 4A, this is season 4, right? This is basically what season 4A was all about, was how do we properly reboot this show and bring in a new lead? So you bring in your crossover character with Lenny, Lenny James, and all of these new characters, which luckily for them, they're all, well, Naomi, Laura, June, whatever, is debatable, but for the most part, you have a lot of likable characters, particularly John Dory.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Morgan was a great choice to go and take point of a new show. I was sorry to see him leave The Walking Dead, but he may have been fortuitous for him at the end of it, because there's a lot going on, which we'll get into later. So does anyone have any thoughts on the finale, Madison's death, or... And hello, everyone.
Hey, Joshua. Thanks for the support. So I never, like 2 or 3 years ago, if somebody had gone back in time and told me that Fear the Walking Dead was going to be the success or arguably the better of the 2 shows, and that like terrible things would be going on to The Walking Dead, I never would have believed them. I would have said, like, you're insane. But amazingly, I think they pulled it off with this reboot. I mean, Lenny's doing a great job on Fear the Walking Dead, and I think it's pretty clear now that he's the main character since Madison is dead.
Yeah, which brings us to our next topic of Lenny James being the new leading man. He's officially the first build for 4B.
Yeah.
So no Frank Delane and no Kim Dickens mentioned at all.
No, the Clark family is pretty much dead except for Alicia.
It's dead.
Yeah, nobody really cares about Alicia.
Or at least I don't.
I don't care about Alicia either. But then again, I didn't care about Madison either, so they're just kind of like, meh to me. It's crazy how this whole thing is like unfolded. I'm happy with it though. I mean, I think like the duo of John Dory and Morgan really, really works in a strange way. The invention of his character was a great. They did a great job with his character, the writing and everything. And I really like Garrett Dillahunt, that actor. I had never really seen him on anything before, but I really like him through The Walking Dead. Lenny James, I think it's funny because when they revealed that he was going to be like the crossover person on Talking Dead, he looked like so bummed out and was like almost crying. And now his demeanor's totally changed because I think he realized that this was like ultimately advantageous for his career. So,
although on that same token, we'll get into that later. Well, I guess we can get into it now because the next portion is, essentially Rick Grimes leading. These topics kind of blend together to start.
Yeah, let's talk about all the people that are just dying or getting replaced on The Walking Dead or Fear the Walking Dead.
You know, on the one hand, I think Lenny was the perfect choice, but now like there's going to be this hole on The Walking Dead, like who's going to pick up the mantle of leader now? Which,
Not Daryl.
assuming this is
Oh God, how do you guys feel about the Daryl thing? Like, I'm curious, just like the people who are online right now. I think it's a terrible idea. Like, personally, I think that they have done nothing the last 2.5 seasons but make him look unlikable.
Well, I think part of the problem is there's a difference between a character who's popular by fans or a certain subset of fans versus who will best serve the story or who is capable of being a leader. And the reality is, it's not everyone is capable of being a leader, and Daryl is just one of those people. He's a soldier, maybe a general at best, but he's definitely not. He's not the head cheese. He's just not. Obviously, I don't know what they're going to do. So part of me, the obvious choice would be Michonne. However, if there's no Rick, if he's leaving, I don't know how to address that. Like, I don't even know how to compute that right now. I have to see what they do. But excluding her, the obvious choice to me would be Carol.
I think Carol will be a good choice, but I don't know. I feel like they're already like hard set on Daryl. Assuming all this is true, I mean, this is all still like in my mind rumors. I just think the idea of Daryl becoming the main character is it just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. He's supposed to go from like the guy who's made nothing but bad decisions for 2.5 years to all of a sudden being competent enough to lead the entire show. Nah. Doesn't make any sense to me, especially the way that he went against Rick's plans and wishes like the entire last season during the war. It almost got a bunch of people killed and killed a bunch of people who like shouldn't have been killed. Like that one scene when he shot that innocent guy. Yeah,
Mingus from Boy Meets World.
He shot that guy for basically no reason, and Rick even gave him a look like, dude, what is wrong with you? I mean, they've just framed him as a really dislikable character, and so I just think the idea of him being the leader is asinine.
Well, even if he was still likable, I still don't see Daryl as a leader. Even if we took it back to seasons 3, 4, or 5, he's still just not he's just not a leader to me. I can't see it.
I guess the reason why, I mean, I can kind of see like why AMC would do something like that, just because they're just thinking about it in terms of retention of the fan base. Yeah. They're saying like, well, if Rick's going to die, what's the next biggest fan base that we can make the leaders that people keep wanting to tune in? And that's obviously Daryl. I mean, there's no other character that has t-shirts and memes around that say, if Daryl dies, we riot. There's no other t-shirts for any other like character except for that one, right? So they're doing that because they figure that if anything's going to save the show from just dying altogether once Rick leaves, that it's going to be Daryl. It's like it's a last-ditch effort.
I don't think that's a smart decision because, again, they need to start serving the story. People have been disappointed in like storylines and overall character interaction. So having Daryl just randomly be the leader just because, the character is popular doesn't mean that character will best serve the story. You want to read some of the comments?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
On right now.
So we got a bunch of comments here. Let's see if we can find some good ones. I love Norman Reedus, but Daryl is not a leader. Yeah, Karma, I totally agree with you. Daryl rarely talks. How will he lead? Yeah, exactly. What's he going to use sign language and grunts for the entire duration of him on the show to be a leader? Come on, not realistic. Issue with Carol is that she flip-flops, Jacob says.
Well,
but she's never flip-flopped though in terms of her loyalty to the group.
I think she's kind of stabled out now. Like she's found, I think, a medium from where she was to who she is now.
Venus says the leader would have to be somebody who was already a strong leader. Yeah, that's true. Which again, I mean, I think that's definitely Carol. I mean, like she's.
It's Michonne, it's Carol, and as Randy pointed out, it's Negan.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? Let's touch on that real quick. So, our friend Randy, I don't know if he's on right now or not, but he made an interesting prediction the other day that I actually think is somewhat plausible, which is that Maggie, because they foreshadowed this whole thing that Maggie doesn't like what Rick did with Negan. Instead of killing him, she's locking him up. His theory is that during like some sort of a struggle where Maggie tries to kill Negan, Rick might actually kill Maggie, and that just kind of causes him to not want to be part of the group anymore because of how much damage and like shame that's surrounding the whole situation. And then once he leaves, that would make room for Negan to be actually a leader.
Even if, you know, however Maggie dies or whatever, regardless of what happens, the fact is that if we're talking about characters who can one lead and also simultaneously carry a show, Negan's still, you know, in the top three. It's Michonne, it's Carol, it's Negan.
I think Negan makes the most sense logically. I mean, he has a track record of running the show and running it pretty well until its ultimate demise. But I mean, he already has been our leader. You know what I mean?
If it was a scenario where Michonne stays, if Rick goes, I don't know, AWOL or dies or whatever, he might insist on helping, and eventually she might take the help, especially if the Whisperers happen to show up.
Yeah,
like she doesn't have a choice. Like Alexandria is unprotected; she needs a right hand, and that right hand won't be Daryl because of the contention or whatever. He'll probably still be at Hilltop.
Yeah,
and so she's going to need a right hand. Carol's at the Kingdom.
You know, Negan's whole his whole like mentality has always been surrounded around building a group and saving people, whereas like Daryl, he's been a loner since day one. I mean, anytime Daryl wants to do something, he like doesn't even tell anyone and just goes and marches off into the woods by himself and does it. He does the exact opposite of like gather a team. Yeah, he you know, a leader's supposed to gather a team, figure out a plan, and then like execute on the plan. That could not be more opposite of Daryl's character. He's like literally the least likely person to be a leader on the entire show, which is why I think the idea is so stupid. It's just, it wouldn't make any sense. Let's see. Rick leaves, so do I. It started with him, his story. I realize there's other people, but dang, Daryl is great, but not a lead. Yep, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I mean, I'll still watch it, but I'm not going to be passionate about it. Like, I'm not going to want to, like, you know, do tons of videos on it and, like, talk about it all the time. I'm not going to be excited to talk about it the way that I used to be. That's for sure. Carol and King E ruling together would be pretty cool. I don't know if people are connected enough to King Ezekiel for him to like take over the entire show, though. I don't think. I don't. Yeah.
I didn't mean to make that face, but
I'm not seeing that one. Face. I like King Ezekiel, but I don't feel like
I wouldn't want to watch the King Ezekiel show.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to watch the Jesus show. I wouldn't want to watch the Jerry show. I wouldn't want to watch who else? I mean, I don't. It's easier to name the shows that I would watch at this point, honestly. Let's
see, if Rick kills Maggie to protect Negan, I'm done. A lot of people feel the same way.
Not necessarily to protect Negan, but if Maggie sneaks in the middle of the night trying to, run, like, and he doesn't know who it is.
I think that's
totally different. That's totally plausible.
I think that's the scenario that our friend Randy was like sort of insinuating, I think that would actually make sense. They could write that to make sense.
If Maggie, Jesus, and Daryl break in and Rick doesn't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, he thinks they're getting like attacked by, the rest of the saviors or something that are still out there alive.
Or just anyone.
Like, I could see a plot line where he mistakes them for maybe like a couple saviors who escaped and came back to rescue Negan or something like that.
Just anyone who who wants to do them harm. Like, you sneaking in the middle of the night, it's dark, you're a shadowy figure, I don't know who you are, you obviously don't belong.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways that they could do that.
Rick shoots first and asks questions.
Brandy, thoughts on what's going on with Chris? We're going to get to that in a second. We definitely have a lot to say about that. What do you think will happen to Michonne? We don't know. It depends on what happens to Rick, really. I could see Rick being the cause of Maggie's death. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. I would like for Rick to walk off, but there will always be that question on everybody's mind as to if, where, or when Rick will be on the show again. Okay, so I think that's actually a good point to go into the John Bernthal thing, because I don't know if you guys probably know about this. John Bernthal has been seen. Bernthal. I don't know why I always say it that way. Bernthal. He was seen actually near the set of The Walking Dead.
No, on set.
Was he on set, or was he? I think he was at Nick and Norman's.
Or around the set.
He was at Nick and Norman's with Andy and Norman.
He was in a car at one point with
Andy. There was a bunch of different pictures that showed up. But the point is that he's there hanging out with Norman and Andy. My gut feeling is that he's probably there for like a flashback sequence, and if it is a flashback sequence, that leads me to think that Rick's probably going to die.
A flashback or a dream?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of seems like the type of thing that he might like hallucinate or be thinking about like shortly before he dies, or something like that. That's just kind of like the way that it feels to me.
John was wearing a hat. I just wish I could have seen what type of hair he had, because that would give me an indicator as to
if he has a buzz cut,
where Shane is.
Yeah, if he's got a buzz cut, it's probably him being Shane Walsh again.
But if it's full hair, that's still Shane.
I mean,
Shane only cut his hair after he killed that dude.
At this point, I think that it's overwhelmingly likely that he is there to do a flashback, because I think it's just way too much of a coincidence that like 2 weeks after some news gets leaked that Rick is leaving, all of a sudden John Bernthal shows up on set when he's never been seen on set the last 5 years since he did that one other hallucination sequence in season 3.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't been there at all for 5 years, and then he all of a sudden shows up 2 weeks after like this news of Rick leaving. No way that's a coincidence. There's just no way. He's got to be there for a flashback sequence, which like kind of bums me out, because it makes me think that they're probably going to kill Rick and not have him come back.
You could have a flashback without it being, someone dying. Could just it could be reflecting, or it could be a dream. It could be a number of things. But again, I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm tired of trying to like figure it out.
There's so much. Yeah, this month has just been so weird. I mean, I feel like every day I'm like afraid to open my newsfeed now, because every day it's just like something weird and new that's going on. So, let's see. Comments. Oh no, I'm saying what she was at season 5B and wanting to kill, but then I don't know what you're referring to, Jacob. He's talking about something with 5B and 6B. If there's some way to get Negan to curb his way of obtaining control, there's no other reason he couldn't lead. Yeah, that kind of makes sense too. I mean, those who follow the comics know that there's actually like a thing where him and Rick end up teaming up to deal with a crisis at one point. So they sort of curb his character around from being entirely evil to actually being sort of good, which I was looking forward to seeing on the show, but I guess that's not going to happen if Rick's going to leave. What's up with the Shane thing, Amanda? He was seen on set. We don't really know what it means.
Well, John was seen on set.
Yeah, we're assuming that he's probably there as Shane. What about poor Judith? She will have lost her brother and her dad. Well, at least she's too young to remember them.
Well, she's not that young. She's old enough to remember them, but I mean, obviously, she's around a lot of people, and if she still has Michonne, she'll probably be okay.
That would be, how messed up would that be if like she grows up and Michonne is just like, well, your real dad is dead, and the guy who was pretending he was your dad, he's also dead.
No one's going to say that.
And oh, by the way, your mom's dead too, and your brother. It's like, how depressing of a childhood is she in for?
She's going to say all that. It would just be a mention of just Rick and Carl, and she'll probably ask about her birth mother. I mean, obviously, Michonne would be her mom.
That kid got
parents she's got left.
That kid got dealt a bad hand in terms of family. It's true. Okay, let's get. Man, we have a lot of comments. Thanks you guys for participating. Michonne would be the leader, and Rosita would be her right hand. Yeah. Those two have had the most scenes together in the last season. Oh, Latrinda. We hate Rosita. We don't talk about Rosita being anything important here. Don't you know? No, I'm just kidding.
You're not.
I could never see Rosita being in any sort of a leadership position. She is awful to me. She's probably like my least favorite character on the entire show at this point.
Wow. Well, that just hurt. That almost broke my brain.
I could never accept that. That would be enough to make me probably stop watching the show entirely, to be honest.
Jesus Christ. Wow, okay.
Kiana says, I'm not saying King E should be the lead and take over the show, but he's already a leader, and since he is sort of with Carol, they could lead together. He does also have a history of being a leader, that's true. That's a good point. I don't think Maggie was to kill Rick, just force him out or step down, Venus says. Well, yeah, but I mean, why would Rick ever concede to her? You know what I mean? Like, I don't see Rick being like, okay, I admit I was wrong and you can lead now. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Rick would never, he did what he did specifically because he felt that it was in Carl's wishes to not kill Negan. And so I don't see him like going back on that and saying like, oh yeah, Carl was wrong and you were right and let's kill Negan and you can be the leader.
See Rick stepping down, but not for that reason.
Nah, yeah, no way. That would be out of character for him.
Rick needs to go look for Morgan. I wouldn't be upset if he did a guest spot on Fear. I wouldn't be mad about it. But I doubt that's going to happen.
They're not going to do that. I don't like the idea of Rick leaving Michonne and Judith. How could she even just pick up and act like nothing has happened without him? Yeah.
I agree, but I also don't want Rick to die. So at this point, is what am I willing to accept? Because if he's not dead, that means he can always come back at a later date. Like, I'm still hoping for Detective Stabler to come back and save Law and Order SVU because it's totally trash without him.
Yeah, the whole thing is it's like one of those things where it almost just seems impossible for the writers to do a good job on this and not screw it up. I mean, I'm sure there's a way to do it, but none of the scenarios that people have like said to me or that I can imagine are very satisfying. I mean, I just can't imagine a satisfying The Walking Dead show without Rick Grimes. It just doesn't feel right. So I don't know.
Also, a hallucination Brandy mentioned in regards to Shane, which is also possible, which reminds me of that scene where Daryl hallucinated Merle when he was looking for Sophia.
Let's see. Flashback makes sense since now maybe Rick accidentally kills Maggie and he remembers what he had with Shane. That's an interesting theory. Okay, I think that's about it for the that whole thing. Should we move on to next topic?
Right, which would be hard times for.
Okay, so oh my god, Chris Hardwick is probably the last person that I would have expected to have any sort of sexual abuse allegations come out against him, but. It's happened. So his ex-girlfriend is saying that he basically she used the term sexual assault in an essay that she wrote,
which all the other outlets that picked it up also used that term of sexual assault.
Yeah, which I don't think was the appropriate term given the way that she described what happened in the essay.
Let's make this clear to start. Regardless of who's right, whether she's right or if he's right.
Yeah, we don't know.
If one is to, assume that everything she says is 100% correct, and I read her essay through twice. There's a lot of inconsistencies as to what she's saying, and also I didn't see anything actually described as sexual assault. I saw what could be described as a shitty boyfriend, or even an indifferent one.
Yeah, so I mean, like it, and like to her credit, I mean, she might just not want to, like, if there is an actual sexual assault, she could have just not wanted to describe it. But what bothers me about it, actually
say there is a sexual assault.
Yeah,
she said that he basically gave her an ultimatum about how much sex they should be having.
Yeah, which is a totally different thing. I mean, you could call that really manipulative and being an asshole, but I don't think that's sexual assault.
Actually, I shared a story the other day privately on my own Facebook, and someone called it fuckboy behavior. And basically, I was dating this guy that I really liked, and he told me that before he could even consider my being his girlfriend, before he could even consider it, that we had to start having sex. And I finished it with, well, he basically gave me a choice, one or the other, and then I took my black ass home. I could have agreed to it. It is, some people would have, some people would not, but ultimately, it was my choice whether to try it out or to not do that, and I chose not to. And it sounds like, she said she was feeling ill or whatever because she was anorexic or dealing with her anorexia or whatever, but she still chose to do that.
Yeah, and also, I mean, like, I feel bad for her if she's anorexic, but that's not Chris Hardwick's fault.
So I would like, for those, since we're going ahead and discussing this, and I want to hear some comments, for the people who read the essay, I'm being very specific now. For the people who read the essay, can you give me a quote where she talks about her sexual assault? Because it's possible that I missed it. I read it twice. I didn't see an actual sexual assault in the body of her essay.
Yeah,
now,
me neither.
Maybe someone knows something that we don't, but I'm just basing it off of what she said, and I did not see that.
Yeah, I didn't see that either. I mean, I think I wish I had it up in front of me, but I actually think that the exact line where she used the term sexual assault was I allowed him to sexually assault me. You can't allow someone to sexually assault you. If you're allowing it, it is by definition not assault. That doesn't make any sense. That's like I mean, that sentence contradicts itself. And the thing that really disturbs me about this, and not just this incident, but all the other ones that have happened in Hollywood, like with Morgan Freeman and Ryan Seacrest and everybody, is that Aziz Ansari. There's this attitude, like in Hollywood right now, of guilty until proven innocent. And the sentencing happened. They skip the entire investigation process and trial and go right to the sentencing. There's no due process. If somebody says something, they're automatically guilty. No need to look into it further. And we're going to totally destroy their career right off the bat just so we can look good in the eyes of the Me Too movement. That's what it seems like to me. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I was reading some comments today in one of the groups, and this one lady, she wrote like a big long thing about how it was, she was defending Chloe and going against Chris Hardwick, and she was basically making the point of like all the people who are doubting what she's saying. This is exactly the reason why most abuse cases don't go, reported and yada yada yada. And like, here's the problem with that. The problem with that is that the result of the words being said, regardless of whether or not they're true or false, have the same impact on the person's career. And so because of that, it has to be taken into account whether or not there should be an investigative process before taking action on somebody's career. That's why there's due process in the justice system.
Also, I'm going to add another layer to this. This has bothered me for some time beyond Chris Hardwick, but just coming at it from a perspective as a Black person, when we live like in a time where there's a lot of false phone calls to police. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of false, not a lot, but there can be false accusations. And I think it is remiss of us all to act as if, people lie, not just men, women lie too. Anyone can lie.
People lie.
People lie for whatever agendas that they have, if it's vengeance or if they just want to, whatever. I'm not saying that's inherently the case here. I think there's some confusion as to what one, consent is, and also two, what a shitty relationship is versus something that's emotionally toxic, let's say.
Yeah.
And I know many people have been in shitty relationships. I've been in shitty relationships. But there is a difference between that and abuse. And I think there's some confusion perhaps on her part and on some people reading what she said. But the fact is that this is a popular time now for false accusations, and I mean beyond sexual assault, because I'm looking at it from a broader perspective as well. And some people are more easily targeted. Okay, so I'm speaking not just as a woman, but as a minority, and I understand that. And in certain scenarios, people lose their careers, and in extreme scenarios, people go to prison or lose their lives even.
Yeah.
So I just think that we should all be treading carefully until we get all of the facts. And if you base it solely on her essay, even then, there is no actual sexual assault.
Yeah.
You cannot consent and then say it's assault. That's all I really want to say.
It's so, and it's like so hard to take this stance, because like the second that you take the stance, like everybody calls you like a victim blamer and like a victim shamer. And so my response to that is like, okay, let's just imagine for a second that the judicial system worked the same way that AMC is treating Chris right now. Well, I saw that person shoplift, and then like immediately the cops just show up and just throw you in jail for shoplifting right away.
That probably will happen.
Right.
And you might get shot.
No due process, no trial, right? The same people that are like saying that nobody should be like, you know, questioning her essentially, like they would never accept that rationale. So you can't apply that logic to this either. You can't just destroy somebody's entire career because one person said something. It's not logical.
Well, it's not even that she said something, but what she said was tantamount to a shitty relationship and not
which has nothing
assault.
to do with his business. Like it just doesn't. I guess the
blacklisting thing would warrant an investigation. I don't know about that, but in terms
they should investigate it.
In terms of the assault thing, I think that's been misconstrued.
Yeah, and they should investigate it, and I hope they do. But here's the reality. I don't think that either way, even if he gets cleared, I don't think that his show is coming back. And here's the reason why, especially talking with Chris Hardwick.
And I really wanted to see Donald Glover too, by the way.
One of the things that was said in I think it was CNN, but I don't remember, was that AMC, part of their justification for putting talking on hold was because most of the season hasn't actually been shot yet, and a lot of the guests that were supposed to be on, they were the ones who said to AMC that they wanted to distance themselves from Chris Hardwick. Mm-hmm. So let's imagine if they do an investigation and they find it to be false. Do you really think those people are going to want to come on the show? Can you imagine how awkward that interview would be? Oh, sorry for before almost not coming on your show because I didn't want to be on AMC. Like, the show's ruined either way. It's ruined either way.
With Ryan Seacrest, they didn't pull him from like the red carpet or anything, and a lot of actresses specifically distanced themselves from being interviewed by him, except for Taraji P. Henson. And it came out, after their investigation, they said there was nothing there.
Yeah,
it was dismissed. So
his career is ruined either way.
Ryan Seacrest, he'll be all right.
He'll probably
Chris
be
Hardwick,
all right.
I don't know.
Yeah, it seems to me that his career is pretty much like ruined at this point either way. I mean, even if like tomorrow, both NBC and AMC both come out and say we did an investigation and found it to be false, doesn't matter, because there's still going to be a significant portion of the population who doesn't believe that it's false and thinks that he actually did something. His fan base, either way, just like dramatically took a giant plunge.
I think his fans have been supporting him, but some of the comments I've seen were people who didn't like him anyway. And I'm like, well, good. That's usually the comment. I didn't like him anyway. I didn't think he was very funny, which is like a strange trajectory of.
Yeah, that is a strange trajectory to change when it's talking about a specific issue. But
so now let's go ahead and, or maybe you should back read some of those comments.
Yeah, we're gonna have a million comments on this.
Okay. 179 comments. So
yeah, thanks so much, guys, for participating. You're making this a lot of fun. Okay, Kiana, I think if she has proof, she should bring it because so many people are being accused and then being witch hunted. I'm not saying that there aren't sexual predators in Hollywood, but this is such a serious issue and people do have their lives ruined based on allegations. Yeah, and I mean, that's another thing that is really bothersome about the whole thing. If you're going to take the time to write this like massive essay and everything, you better be armed with the proof to back it up. I mean, I just think it's really like unfair to do something like that and then just be like, oh, I'm going to be tight-lipped about it though from now on. When people say like, can you say anything about it? Like, can you verify this? And then like now she's all of a sudden be quiet.
And also, before we move on to the next thing, I just want to say that I think there are some other unfortunate things that occur, which is one, Chris's lag in responding, which I know he was hesitant to respond because he wasn't explicitly named. People were naming him in the media. And also, he should have been more vehement, I think, ultimately in his denial. I think he was trying to be diplomatic, which in this instance, if someone was trying to ruin my name, I'm gonna speak very plain English, and I'm not gonna hold back how I feel about that. A good example would probably be George Takei, who was also accused of drugging and sexually assaulting someone. That guy later recanted and ultimately said he didn't like Asian men, which was like, horrible. He was trying to drag George Takei down. I saw all these posts about, oh, not George too. And then George Takei and his husband were like, nope, not today. This didn't happen. So I also think it was a bad call to not have, what's her name? Lydia not say anything.
His mother-in-law came to his aid.
Yeah, but his wife should have came to his.
Well,
Kim Kardashian West
she didn't want to
beat
get
me on
involved.
Twitter 5 minutes after somebody got something nasty to say about Kanye. Lydia should have been all over that. Like, look, and I would believe her because one, Lydia is not. She's a supermodel and she's an heiress, right? So I know he's older than her, but that power imbalance doesn't really exist when you have the money and the name that she does. So
okay, Latrinda says there have been many people who have come forward and that have been involved with both parties that are attesting to her statements. Who are they though? Because I only saw one, and it was that guy on Twitter who.
It's her boyfriend.
That was her boyfriend?
His name's Robert or something, right?
I don't think so. I think it was somebody else. I thought it was somebody who used to work with Chris.
Oh, well, either way, again, her statements in that essay that's still not assault. That's still not.
Yeah, I mean, it's still like an attack.
It's entire. She says that she dated him like weeks or something after he got out of a serious relationship.
Yeah.
Which is a rebound situation to start, right? So it's entirely, like, I totally believe that he was probably a colossal douchebag because most people in the rebound are.
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole, it's a sorry state of affairs.
Not a reason to fire somebody and ruin their whole career, though.
No. No.
Venus says, there's no reason you should be fired without some kind of proof. If it all came to light, then it happened by all means, but destroying someone's career without proof is utter bullshit. Yeah, I agree. Let's see. AMC said talking would not come on this Sunday. That's all. And Chris himself resigned from the panels in Comic-Con SD. Yep. That's true. He claims that he that is true, to make a note of that. He
stepped down.
He stepped down from the panels at Comic-Con.
I don't think he had much of a choice, though.
Which still sucks because that panel is going to be awkward now. People should, let's see, Lindsay says, people should not have their careers ended on one accusation. Now, if there's proof, then absolutely. But to ruin someone over a bad relationship, that's not cool. Yeah, and so, like, my whole thing is, like, why doesn't AMC launch the investigation but not change the programming schedule until there's a warrant to do so? Like, they're punishing before the investigation, and that's not how it's supposed to work. Like, that's backwards. So, I don't really like that.
The GoFundMe.
It's too bad talking isn't coming on because Donald Glover was supposed to be on.
I really want to talk about This Is America. I really wanted to watch that, so I hope they air it even if it's later.
Amber says, the essay is very gray area. It wasn't clear-cut rape, more like she's accusing him of abusing his power at 20 years her senior and blacklisting. Yeah, I'd say that's a fair statement. We don't know. The blacklisting thing.
We don't know if that's true.
I don't know. I mean, that's so hard. Unless one of the people who like agreed to blacklist her comes out, which is never going to happen because nobody wants to admit that they did that, right?
Yeah.
We're to verify that. We're never going to know. So I can't even really comment on that because I just think that, like, it's so hard to tell that there's no point in even really speculating.
Also, it's possible. I'm not, like, if I was, one, she said that he was getting her jobs where he worked, right? And if you cheat on someone and then y'all broke up, I wouldn't want to work with them either. Like,
yeah,
you're not working at my company anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is
like,
interesting. I like this comment. Chris Jones says, I believe that there was definite emotional abuse and Chris never addressed that. He blacklisted her from getting a job. If he is innocent, then let him sue, and any evidence she may or may not will have to come out then. Yeah,
I would sue.
I actually thought about that the other day, and I wonder if maybe that's going to happen because, I mean, we're talking about, like, damages to sue for. He's got a lot of damages right now because of what she just said. I mean, he's probably going to lose talking. I mean, I know AMC said we've suspended the show pending the investigation, but let's be honest, how often does that happen? I mean, I really doubt that they're going to, like, bring the show back at this point, given, like, how much stigma there is around the whole thing. And there's not going to be a way to really prove or disprove it either way. And so they're going to take the safe road and just keep it canceled so that they look like they're taking the high road.
Honestly, even the blacklisting thing would be hard because it sounded like he got her, like, her first major on-roll gig at his place of work.
When he was in charge of Nerdist, yeah.
Yeah, so if he was pulling strings for her to get work, And if he just suddenly stopped pulling strings, is that the same as blacklisting? You know what I mean? Like
that's
maybe
a
like
good point. I'm not really
own.
sure what the answer to that is,
like,
actually.
Does anyone know what she's been doing lately? Like, I never heard of her before, honestly, before this.
Well, I think she's still at Nerdist.
Really?
I think she's still at Nerdist.
Okay.
Is that true, guys? I don't know. That was the way I
don't
interpreted
know.
it from the way that I read the essay, but maybe I'm wrong. Let's see here. You guys are awesome for doing all these comments. I really appreciate it. Debbie Ort, what makes me mad, she waited after he's married now and his wife is pregnant.
Oh, she's pregnant.
She is a scorned woman and she cheated on Chris and begged him to take her back. Okay, so I don't know if, look, I'm not going to say whether or not, like, I think that is or isn't true, but I will say this. I find it if she's doing it because she's a scorned woman.
Oh,
I don't know. I don't know about the motivations behind it, but I will say this, and this is just an observation. I'm not saying that I think she's doing this or not doing this. I think it is a very big coincidence that she just happens to release the essay 2 days before his show is supposed to come back on the air and 3 weeks before he's supposed to go to Comic-Con. I mean, it seems like the timing could not possibly be any worse for him. And given the fact that he's been broken up with her forever and she hasn't said a thing about it until now, I mean, it really does look questionable in terms of her motivations here. You know, I don't know. It just seems to me like it was released during a time when it was like kind of like positioned to do the most damage. That's the way that it seems to me. Yeah.
You know, he lives for Comic-Con.
Yeah, he's the one who's been doing the Walking Dead panel since before the show premiered, like in 2009, before it even came out in 2010. Yeah. He is the only person who's ever done a Walking Dead panel before. He is the owner of that panel. Like, if they get...
Well, Yvette Nicole Brown has done a couple of panels, but...
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine? It's going to be a really uncomfortable panel this year, I think.
Well, let's actually talk about that. So obviously, you guys have probably heard about the petition to get Brandenn Davis.
Brandenn Davis is one of them.
Comicbook.com to take over the SDCC panels. And as for talking, people have mentioned Yvette Nicole Brown and Kevin Smith. I don't
think Kevin Smith will do that.
I don't think Kevin Smith will do it either. But I mean, however, that being said, if I had to choose someone to take over the panel, I would definitely choose Kevin Smith. Over
Brandenn Davis?
He's not a comedian. Like, yeah, he interviews people a lot, but that's not. I want to laugh. That's not funny. I want someone to keep it going, to keep the momentum going, and I think only a funny comedian, not Aisha Tyler. I can't stand her. Kevin Smith, I think, would be do a good job. And I've seen his one-man panel where he's just basically at the podium talking himself for an hour. I mean, I think he's great.
I like Kevin Smith a lot too. I mean, I think that, I don't know, I mean, Brandenn Davis is the CEO of comicbook.com, and he also has an extensive relationship of interviewing all of the individual cast members.
If I wanted to watch a long interview for an hour, I'd say yes. But that's not how panels aren't. It's a lot of different components going with the panels beyond just an interview. It's beyond just asking the panelists questions. So you have to be able to wear multiple hats, and I don't believe what?
Brandy Go, she just needs to eat. Talking about Chloe.
I'm not touching that one.
Brandy, that's hilarious. I'm not going to comment on that either because I don't want people to yell at me, but that's funny. Somebody else said something like that earlier, too, about she was just hungry. Somebody needed to feed her.
You'll feel better after you have a good meal,
though. Oh, my God. Oh, wow. Okay, whoops. Microphone fell over.
It was Robert. Robert is her boyfriend, that guy who was posted on Twitter.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, that's like inherently biased then. It's somebody who has like a close relationship. Like, just the way that I wouldn't really trust the comments from Patty Hearst, Lydia's mom, I probably wouldn't trust these comments from her either. We need somebody who has not been in a serious relationship with like either one of them and has just worked with each of them both. Or we need somebody like that to comment on it and say, have they seen any of this behavior? Have they heard any of these things being like said to either one of them, or to her by him, about the the emotional abuse aspect of it? Obviously, probably not the sexual stuff, because they wouldn't be talking about that in front of other people. But you could at least like get some evidence of the emotional abuse, like with the telling her to stay in the hotel room thing and all that stuff.
Oh, well, that is just so.
I know. I'm just
see a hostage or something. Look, all I want to say, the last thing about the whole Hardwick thing, I just he's probably gonna do an interview at some point. He just needs to speak plain English about what happened and what he thinks and how he feels about it. Because, and also, I'd be really pissed off if I was being hung out to dry and not one of my best friends, not one of my good friends or some whatever, didn't come out and step up for me. Like, y'all know who I am. Like, I would be really pissed off, and I'd be calling out a lot of folks on that. So, but yeah, Brandon Davis is a no for me, dog. Sorry, I
like Brandon Davis. So.
He's more like a quiet, like I'm watching Dateline type interview. That's not.
He's very in depth. I mean, he's like a long form interview guy.
But it's not that's not an entertaining. That's not a panel's work.
He might not be the best like choice for the panels, but nonetheless, I wouldn't be like mad if he was the one who got chosen.
And what do you guys think about Yvette Nicole Brown's name keeps getting thrown up? I think she's great on the couch. I don't know that I would like her in the chair. I saw her. She was hosting at one of the premieres at Madison Square Garden. May have been like season 6. Yeah, I think it was season 6 because Jessie was there, the actress who plays her. And it seemed very awkward to me. There's a lot of awkward moments. Honestly, I'd love to see Michael Rooker. I think he'd be great for a Comic-Con panel. I'm not even talking about hosting a show, but Comic-Con panel, I think, he'd be pretty good. Or, Irony Singleton.
Oh,
he is
wonderful. Okay, so for those who don't know why we're saying this,
T-Dog.
So yeah, Irony Singleton, T-Dog. When we went to the premiere of the season Walking Dead season 8 in Hollywood, he was on the red carpet doing this whole spot, and like he interviewed us, and we got to take a bunch of pictures with him. It was really fun. He's an awesome interview person, and he's really entertaining and funny.
And high energy
live. Like, I was really impressed with him because they kept having like a technical issue where they were supposed to be like going between the like big red carpet and like the red carpet we were on, and they kept saying that they were about to cut to us, but then like randomly they'd change their mind, and he would have to like on the fly improvise and stay funny. And man, he did not miss a beat. He was like on for an hour straight and funny, and like never let the energy of the crowd die. And I was just so impressed because it's hard to do that.
It really is. And I think someone tagged him.
It was so fun. Hanging out with him.
He would be brilliant at a Comic-Con panel. And he obviously he still watches the show. He's all like he knows what's going on. He's knowledgeable. He obviously knows some of the cast. I think he would be a great choice for a Comic-Con panel. And he's also, I don't think he's personal friends with Hardwick, which would be a conflict of interest with like Yvette and Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
So that's my vote. Irony Singleton.
Yeah, that was actually, just as a side note, that was probably like one of the coolest moments for like me personally.
But he knew who we were.
Yeah, we were like, oh yeah, we like started trying to explain it, right? Because we're used to nobody knowing who we are. And he's like, no, I know who you guys are. You guys won that contest. And I was like, you know who I am? Like, it was just such a cool moment because he's like a real celebrity, and it was just like such a cool validation to like have somebody who's on the show be like, oh yeah, I know exactly who you are. I was like, it's so awesome. Anyway, back to the topics at hand. Who do you guys think should be 241 comments? Guys, we're so sorry if we can't get to all the comments. There's just like way too many to cover. Let's see.
Also, it's we're down to our last 8 minutes, so we're gonna make this the viewer's choice segment.
Yeah,
so ask us anything.
Yeah, we'll just we'll kind of like speed forward like to the bottom here and just like let you guys. We'll just start responding real time to like what's coming up right now.
And I'm squinting a lot because I'm not wearing my glasses and I don't have my.
It's T-Dog was amazing at the 100 premiere. I was there with my mom, and he did a great job. I think if they were to replace Chris Hardwick, he would be a good fit. Yeah, I agree, Amanda. Definitely. Michael Rooker is my vote.
I would take either one of those guys. I think that they'll both be brilliant. Irony would be a bit more, I think, professional than Rooker, though. Just and no disrespect to Michael Rooker.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't really know if like Michael Rooker or Ironi have done anything like outside of like the 100 premiere, like any sort of like hosting thing.
Well,
but it just seems like Ironi is probably better suited
that
for
hosting
it,
thing.
know?
I mean, he was hosting.
Yeah,
that's exactly what
he was
doing.
A true host, which I guess probably has, because otherwise they wouldn't have picked him specifically to do that event. It was totally random that he was there in the first place.
I was pleasantly surprised, and you know, the more time we spend with him on that carpet, it was like, wow, like he was just amazing. He really shined.
Yvette Nicole Brown. I'm not sure she would be a good fit. Michael Rooker for sure. A lot of people saying Michael Rooker and Yvette. We need Cudlets. I'd be down for Cudlets. I mean, he's really entertaining too.
Oh, he's so low key. And he's a lovely man. He's so like laid back and low key. I don't know that he would have like the host energy.
Did you meet him?
Yeah.
You met everybody except for Andy.
Oh,
Andy. He's like a unicorn that we can't catch.
I haven't met Melissa McBride either.
Let's see. The bad times are when you find out who your true friends are. You're probably talking about the Chloe Kissel. Yeah. By the way, I love you guys. Thanks, Blanca.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Right, scroll down and see if anybody yet.
I started scrolling up because I went too far and then I skipped a bunch of stuff. Let's see. I think it's all over. Nothing about The Walking Dead will be the same after this season anyway. Oh, I know. It's certainly looking like that right now.
They'll probably have one struggle season in season 10 if Rick is gone. You know, that struggle season where they're trying to make a few more coins before they go all the way out the door.
Shit, man.
I hate struggle seasons.
Yeah, which is really unfortunate too, because like I much prefer when a show goes out sort of like in its prime rather than that sad decline where it just eventually dies, you know? Like I'd much prefer like a Breaking Bad situation where they have just 5 seasons, but man, that last 5th season was so strong, and it's like our last memories of it are when it was in its prime. I don't want to remember The Walking Dead as like the show that like went on too long and sort of died a slow, painful death.
On that same token, you don't want a crap series finale either. Like Seinfeld, that was one of the worst finales of a show. Like it was basically a collection of flashbacks, and they all end up in jail. It was so stupid. And they said their reasoning for ending at that time was that they wanted to end on top as number 1, but that ending was just the worst. So I really don't know what they're going to do with The Walking Dead. Maybe they should also work with the Fear the Walking Dead folks, because they did a brilliant, seamless job at rebooting itself and getting rid of their major characters.
Dude, you know what I said, I was thinking about the other day? If somebody went back in time and told me 3 years ago that, hey, in 3 years, Rick Grimes is going to leave The Walking Dead, Chris Hardwick is going to get accused of sexual assault, and Donald Trump is going to be president, I would have been like, what are you smoking and where can I get some of it? Because it must be some good stuff. Reality, it's what's happening right now.
Booker is unpredictable. Seth Green has hosted a few panels at Comic-Con, and apparently Fessie's really good and a fan of the show. They won't do Irony, not well enough known. I like Seth Green, and I agree Rooker is too predictable.
Hi, Karen, by the way.
Karen. Stephen Ewan. He seems very low-key, though, too. Isn't he a comedian? I didn't know anything about that.
Stephen Ewan?
Yeah.
He doesn't strike me as such, but then again, I've never seen him in anything except for that one movie that we saw after. Which,
if we're talking recommendations, Mayhem is fabulous.
Man, it's great.
So unexpected.
Such an awesome movie.
Agreed, Sherry. I hated the ending of Lost. I thought it was just.
I didn't hate it.
So stupid. I was so angry.
I didn't hate it.
Karen can talk more about that. Wonder how Kirkman feels that the show is going to shit, especially after telling us at New York Comic-Con that The Walking Dead has many more seasons to go. Yeah, his crystal ball was foggy and wrong. I love The Walking Dead from day one and still do, but I think it might be time to start winding things up. Yeah, seriously.
So, yeah, Kiana just said, I'm starting to appreciate shows that have end dates. So, like, random quip on that. I remember when Banshee was ending, they interviewed John Tropper, and he actually said specifically, he was like, I had this like I've always had this horrible fear in the back of my head of being known for being the showrunner of a show that went on too long. I would rather be known as the guy who ended a show too early, but on a great note, than the guy who had it go on too long. And I wish that more showrunners would take that stance.
And obviously you would recommend Banshee for folks to watch.
Oh yeah, please watch Banshee if you haven't watched it already. It's fabulous.
Handmaid's Tale is another good rec. I just started watching Preacher. It's so weird.
It's really weird, but it's good.
I'm trying to suss out what's happening, but it has my attention.
Preacher's awesome. I'm trying to get her caught up. I mean, we're like on episode 2, and you have like 30 more episodes that you'd have to watch in like a week, so it's probably not going to happen.
Well, we'll watch on delay.
Yeah.
We'll just watch on a delay. It's nice to see a show that's clear, concise, ending that makes sense. Killing Carl was her jump the shark moment. Only got 2 minutes left.
2 minutes left.
Have not read the Preacher comic, no. Could not get into Sopranos, although I know how the show ended.
Oh, who said they couldn't get... Gilon. Banshee is amazing. There's another person who knows what that show is. Nobody ever even knows what I'm talking about.
Karen said Steven started a comic in Chicago with a group of Asian improvers. If you ever see him on Conan, it's true. He does do those skits with Conan. He is very funny.
Wait, who?
Stephen Ewan.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, he did that thing where he went to like the Korean spa with him. Did you see that?
Yeah, I've seen some of those.
That's really funny.
I've seen some of these shows going too long.
Blog, I watched Preacher, but it's too weird for me. Yeah, I get it. It is. You have to really suspend disbelief with that show. It's pretty ridiculous, but it's really well done, though.
I'm trying to suss out the rules of that show and like what's happening exactly.
They get defined a little bit better in the next couple episodes.
Okay.
Yeah. I watched season 1 of Banshee. Well, Kiana, you need to watch the other 3 because it
gets way better.
The first season does not do it justice. From like basically the second half of season 2 all the way to the end is like some of the best TV I've like ever seen in my entire life.
Thank you, Amanda. Carrie is on the 100. You know, it's funny. Oh. The first time I saw Carrie from Banshee was on an episode of Buffy. She played Riley Finn's wife, I'm actually rewatching Buffy Angel now. I've got his mom into it. So sadly, I could not get him, but whatever.
Couldn't do it.
If Aaron dies. Oh! Even if Aaron doesn't die, I think Ross Marquand was another I thought that I had. I mentioned this yesterday for being a host on pretty much anything. Ross is just amazing, and his impressions are spot on, and he's an awesome human being.
I like Ross Marquand a lot too.
I love Ross, and I'm gonna shut up. But Ross is great.
On that note, I think we should probably wrap this up. We've gone past that 2-minute mark. All right, so guys, thank you so much for doing this with us. This was kind of an experiment, like we said. We'll do it again since it seems like there's a demand for it. We got a lot of comments.
TLR live next Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, what we'll probably do is like do one of these every week and just kind of talk about like the news and, gossip and rumors, and not only like the Walking Dead universe, but sort of anything revolving around that universe too. And we're open to suggestions. If you guys want to hear us talk about certain other things, let us know, and we'll take it into consideration. We could talk about stuff we've seen recently that we think Walking Dead fans might like. Anything like that. Anything else to add?
No.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. We will see you next weekend. Take care. Bye.
Bye.